You've probably, as a child, wished death upon somebody who didn't deserve it. He took the seat next to the girl I like, I hope he dies. Then you were told by a teacher or a parent that you shouldn't wish for the death or harm upon anyone. If your parents or teachers aren't psychopaths, that is. But then, as you grow older, you're kind of taught by media and real life that it is okay to wish for the death of some people. A horrible character in a TV series, a villain in a video game, this penguin.
Why would you do that? My child!
Murderers on death row, felons guilty of sexual assault, according to New York law. If you tell a group of people that you wish that Vladimir Putin falls out the window soon, I think very few of them would call you out on it. Some of them would probably laugh. Some of them might even tell you that they wish he'd be skinned alive and set on fire. If you said that I'm glad Hitler offed himself, people would probably tell you that they'd be a little bit worried if you weren't. Most of the Western world celebrated the death of Bin Laden and Saddam Hussein, so wishing death upon horrible people who have done horrible things is generally accepted. Sometimes their deaths are even celebrated. In some settings, wishing death upon certain individuals is honestly required. In 2024, during the lead up to the presidential election, someone tried to assassinate Donald Trump. We have later learned that this individual was on the political right, the same side as Trump. He had looked up the rally schedule of both Trump and Biden, and supposedly his goal was to kill someone powerful. Trump was unlucky enough to have his rally nearby. The rhetoric of the left got blamed almost immediately. Demands for people to stop referring to Trump as a dictator, or as Hitler, which his Vice President J.D. Vance has called him at one point. How spines have changed. This as, at the same time, Trump's language was equally and even more violent. If calling for the execution of Mark Milley isn't wishing death upon someone, then what is? Some would say you reap what you sow. Trump's language had very much led to violence and attempted violence against left-wing figures. The attempted kidnapping of Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the attempted murder of Paul Pelosi that was directed at Nancy Pelosi. There was a clear line between what figures on the right had said, including and maybe especially Trump himself, and these violent acts. There was, however, no clear line between what figures on the left had said and the assassination attempt on Trump. After the attack on Paul Pelosi, people on the right spread conspiracy theories and joked about it, including Trump himself. But when Kyle Gass of Tenacious D said this,
"Don't miss Trump next time,"
every hypocrite on the right lost their mind. They demanded Kyle Gass be cancelled, which I thought cancelling people was something only the left did. Jack Black had to condemn his comments, and the rest of the tour was cancelled. If we lived in a society with the same standards for everybody, joking about the attempted murder of Paul Pelosi and suggesting the death penalty for General Mark Milley for just doing his job should have been met with an equal amount of outrage, and Trump should have been forced to drop out of the presidential race and forced to apologise for his comments. But we live in a world of hypocrisy. Unfortunately, Trump won the 2024 election. Maybe the idiot's assassination attempt even helped him across the finish line. His campaign was terrible. He did most things wrong, but still more people voted for him than voted for Kamala Harris, probably because the strong and ever-present sexism and racism in the US. After taking office, Trump has attacked American democracy and democracy as a whole worldwide. He has aligned himself with autocrats and put the US in a constitutional crisis, freezing funds allocated by Congress, which directly conflicts with the three separate branches of American government. Congress has the power of the purse, and the president doesn't have the right to freeze funds allocated by Congress. Some of the funds are still frozen, even though the judicial branch has told him to unfreeze them because he's breaking the law by keeping the funds frozen. He did this in his first term as well when he tried to get dirt fabricated on Joe Biden by freezing aid to Ukraine, while he pressured the Ukrainian president to fabricate said dirt. That's what his first impeachment was about. So the warning signs were there. If people had just googled what was Trump's first impeachment about before they voted for him, America would hopefully not be in a constitutional crisis. Recently, he has had ICE throw people who have every right to stay in the US out of the country before the courts can stop the illegal deportation. Even when the courts ordered him to halt the deportation so that they could give the green card holders a fair trial, which they have every right to, even though they're not a citizen. The Trump administration ignored the court order and just barreled ahead, which is straight up fascism, disappearing dissidents. He pardoned violent criminals who attacked police officers. He has on several occasions threatened to annex Canada and Greenland, and threatened to take the Panama Canal, in all cases not ruling out military force. He's also setting up things for a war with Mexico by labeling the drug cartels as terrorist organizations, which would make it so that he doesn't need congressional permission to put boots on the ground in Mexico. And you could argue that the drug cartels are terrible, and don't get me wrong, they are, but putting boots on the ground in Mexico or bombing the drug cartels like he bombed innocent civilians in Yemen would put the US at war with Mexico. So he would maybe be one of the first presidents in recent history to create a war out of thin air. The last one being George W. Bush, who lied about nuclear weapons in Iraq so that he could put boots on the ground in Iraq, using powers granted to him after 9/11. He's flip-flopping on Ukraine, completely abandoning them at one point, cutting funds, cutting intel sharing, and hoping to deport 200k Ukrainians out of cruelty and malice. What possible reason could he have to cut intel sharing and deporting Ukrainians? He is still mad about Zelensky not helping him fabricate dirt on Joe Biden back in 2020. He has put the US more in line with Russia, the nation that is solely responsible for the horrible and just deadly invasion of a sovereign nation. We have been taught that wishing death upon brutal dictators is completely okay. And if Trump continues down the path he's on, his death will be a cause for celebration and relief. His death will be remembered as a positive event in history, if we look at how the deaths of similar leaders to him are treated in history books. This video idea came about because I was speculating on why it seemingly is not okay to wish for the death of Trump, but it's socially acceptable to wish for the death of Putin. Even though you could argue that they are pretty similar leaders, and Trump is just a few events away from being just as bad as Putin. So I'll pass the question on to you. What line has to be crossed by a leader or a regular person to make us feel relief and glee at their deaths, and make it socially acceptable to have those feelings? Personally, I feel like it's okay to wish for the deaths of people who have committed horrible acts. Domestic abuse, rape, murder, pedophilia. And I feel like it's okay to wish for the deaths of political leaders who have brutally mistreated their people, caused preventable wars, invaded sovereign nations without cause, but other people think that wishing death upon anyone, no matter how horrible they are, is wrong. And I'm going to make this extremely clear. I don't wish for anyone to kill Trump. Now, this isn't really about me wishing death upon Trump. I just want the chaos to stop. And the only way I see it stopping seems to be with his death. He's been politically active for way too long, and he creates unease and instability in the world. Was things perfect before he bulldozed his way into politics? By no means, but they were certainly better. I'd be perfectly happy if he chose to resign today, disband his administration, delete his social media, and then move up into the mountains to become a hermit. I just want stability and peace back, and for innocent people to not have to suffer. Will J.D. Vance be any better? Doubtful, but he will certainly be less effective. I thought we were going to go back to a sense of normality when Biden got elected. But unlike many of the Republican presidents who predated Trump, he chose to stay in the spotlight. So we never really got a break from him. And I'm tired. I wish I could just turn off the news and never see him again, but the things he does affects everyone, even the people not living in the US. Aligning the US with Russia creates a more unsafe world. His tariffs makes things more expensive. His disbanding of certain government agencies will make us less prepared for things. For diseases, for weather events, the first one affecting the whole world more than the second one. The bird flu is now spreading like wildfire in the US. And if the US doesn't have control, it will spread to the rest of the world. The more the virus gets to mutate, the faster it will spread, and it will potentially get more dangerous. So that's why I will feel a great sense of relief if I wake up one day and see the news that President Donald Trump, 78, has died of a heart attack live on TV while signing an executive order banning marriage for love. The Melania won't get into bed with me, so nobody is allowed to be happy act. And on that positive note, bye.